So it is really with extreme pleasure and honor that I get to introduce White House chef and senior policy advisor for healthy food initiatives today. Sam Kass is with us this morning. Chef Kass addressed our conference last year at the Pew Center in Washington, D.C. As you know, he advises the First Lady, who chairs the Let's Move program, for which she was honored last night. And Sam was truly instrumental in creating, as we heard again last night, about the first major vegetable garden at the White House. He's an enthusiastic supporter for everything sustainable and important in childhood nutrition in America today. He's been a great supporter also of the work that the foundation is doing, so we want to thank him especially for that. And we're just thrilled that he's able to join us in his busy schedule. He was trying to be with us last night, but was stuck on a tarmac in Pittsburgh. So please help me welcome Sam Kass to tell us a little bit about his work with the White House. Thank you, Sam.
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Mitchell, for having me here today and for all the work that's going on here. I think it means so much to this community, the fact that James Beard is even putting on a conference such as this and created the awards that were given out last night. I'm very sorry I didn't make it. Trust me, I would have much rather been with you. But it's a really powerful statement in and of itself, and it really points all of us and orients all of us in a direction that thinking and working on such critical issues around food is where we are and need to head. And there's no institution that can do that like James Beard. So thank you all for what you're doing. I only have a few minutes, so I want to just quickly go over what the First Lady is doing, an overview of her work, some of the context that our work is happening in. And some of the things that we've accomplished since this conference last year. There's been a lot of great work going on. And then hopefully we'll get to a few question and answer, which I'd much rather hear your thoughts and ideas. So the First Lady has really laid out a vision for this country. And she's laid out a vision where kids are given the chance to live the healthy, vibrant, and productive lives that we all know that they deserve. This is not the status quo for our kids right now. When you step back and think about what is often the end result to a lot of the issues that I think are being discussed here and ideas and projects that people are working on, the end result becomes our health, and particularly our kids' health. So right now we have 1 in 3 kids in America overweight or obese. I'm sure you hear these statistics a lot. 1 in 3. The CDC now predicts, and the CDC doesn't go out on a limb on these numbers, that 1 in 3 kids born today will have diabetes in their lifetimes. 1 in 3. So for all the programs that are out there that are working with kids, 1 out of every 3 kids you see will have diabetes. And when you step back and think about the implications for this, they're devastating. If you look at it from an economic lens, right now we're already spending $147 billion just treating medically obesity as it stands. But if you project out the numbers where they're going to go, it's overwhelming. These have huge implications. So that's just healthcare. But it has huge implications on our economy, on productivity, on absenteeism for business, and just the vibrancy of our nation. If you think about it through education, kids' academic performance is directly impacted by the activity they get and their health. If you think about maybe where this has hit me, felt the most heavy, is sitting across from retired 4-star generals who have said to us that obesity may be our nation's greatest national security threat. 27% of 18 to 24-year-olds cannot serve in our military. It's the #1 disqualification for military service. So the implications are really heavy. But as the First Lady always reminds us, and all of that is true, this is also about the well-being of our kids. It's about how they feel. It's about how they feel about themselves. It's about how they experience their lives. And if they're going to go through it with such serious conditions, they're just not going to be able to live the lives that we know that they should and they can. So the First Lady's laid out a comprehensive vision for the country. It's based on 5 key areas. And I'm just going to quickly go through them because I'm sure Many of you may have even heard me say this last year before. We know we have to improve our schools and to make sure that schools are fostering the health of our kids, just period. That's the food that they're served, that's the activity that they're getting, and the education that they're getting. We have to ensure that all families have access to healthy and affordable food. Tens of millions of Americans live in areas where there's just no healthy food available to them in any form. People relying on gas stations and corner stores to feed their family. That is not a system where, when we talk about people having the choice to make for their families, they just don't have a choice. That whole mantra doesn't mean anything for those families. So we're working very hard on that. We have to make sure that our kids are being more physically active. The average child spends 7 hours a day in front of a screen. You're just not going to be healthy if you're doing that. We have to make sure that parents have the information that they need to make the healthy choices for their families. Simple information. I often get called on by, can you write another recipe for whatever? Yes, we'll write some more recipes. But these things are important, and this is part of where chefs will come in, which I'll get to in a second. But we have to help support families who are trying to do the right thing. And early childhood. The final pillar is early childhood. From pregnancy on, there's just a study that got released that shows the doctors are starting to see the first signs of heart disease in 2- and 3-year-olds, the precursors. So we know that we have to have an impact on these issues from the very beginning, or else our kids are going to be on a path. They'll already be set on a path. But this set of problems offer us a huge opportunity here, because health is something that we're all dealing with. There isn't a family in America that isn't in some level struggling or grappling with, how do I feed my kids right? How do I make sure that they're getting the activity and nutrition that they need? Over 2/3 of our country is overweight or obese. So these are issues that are affecting everybody. They're affecting of every class, every race, every region of the country. But there's a narrative there. There's a thread that actually can be woven to engage the country on these set of issues that then is the platform for all the work all the diverse efforts that are happening throughout the country. So as we step back and look at this, we've really tried to make some big steps. So restaurants are starting to produce some really amazing change. From the last about 3 weeks ago now, the First Lady announced with Darden Restaurants, which is the nation's largest full-service restaurant chain. This is the Red Lobsters, the Olive Gardens, et cetera. And they made a real commitment to take a look at their children's menu, completely revamp it. They're making fruit or vegetable the default option for every kid's meal that's served. They're making low-fat milk the default option for every meal that's served. Sugary beverages are removed from the kids' menu proper. The healthy options are at the top. They look very nice and pretty. And the pictures of things like French fries are removed. This is really to help parents have more control for over what their kids are eating. They're also stepping back and, in the course of the next 10 years, reducing sodium and calories across the menu by 20%. So over time, incrementally, that's a big deal. It's a big change. And we're seeing lots of restaurants starting to really make huge improvements in the food that they're serving. First they did a major announcement around access to healthy, affordable food with major retailers and small as well, from the Walgreens, Walmart, Super Value to my friend Mr. Calhoun in Mobile, Alabama, who has 5 stores. They've all committed over the next 5 years to target their growth in areas of greatest need. So altogether, it's approximately 1,500 stores that are going to either new stores or add fresh produce sections to existing stores in 1,500 locations over the next 5 years. That will touch about 9.5 million people, or about 40% of the people in this country who are really struggling with this issue. Major step in the right direction. Long way to go, but it was a huge victory for people working on this issue. My plate. When we're trying to empower parents with information, the tool that we had in the government when we came in was the pyramid. And with all due respect to the pyramid, we don't eat off pyramids, right? We eat off plates. And So we really worked to come up with a framework that was simple, that made sense, and that people could actually use as a guide to help put together what a healthy plate would look like. Now there's a lot of work to be done to interpret that plate, and I think that's one place where chefs will come in, and I'll get to that in a minute as well. But doctors, the American Association of Pediatricians is writing prescriptions for fruits and vegetables and physical activity as a formal prescription as medicine. So when a kid comes in and they're sick, they write the prescription and that's what they get. That's a huge thing. You know, culture, that's a transformative moment. And the First Lady passed the help pass with the support of many advocates from around the country and leaders on the Hill of the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, which is a bill that is going to really fundamentally change what we see being served in schools. Over the next, I think when you look in 5 years, you're not going to recognize school lunch as it is today. And it's going to take some time to implement. But that bill will take nutritional standards that were once for nutrition, for what's being served in the cafeteria proper for as part of the school lunch program, and expand those standards and raise them to all food sold in schools. So now vending machines will have high nutritional standards, snack bars, and et cetera. So these are some big, big things that are going on. One place, we have a lot of outreach that we're doing, and one place real quickly that I want to touch on is chefs. And chefs have, I think what we're seeing here is chefs have a moment where we have an opportunity, and I would argue a responsibility, to really help guide our country to a new place. Right now we have over 3,700 chefs around the country working with schools as part of the First Lady's Chefs Move to Schools program. That number grows every week. With My Plate, for example, the My Plate is a framework that has to be interpreted, right? So it's a great starting point, but we're going to need chefs to help come up with those simple recipes and those menu items in their restaurants and for families that can really support that work. So chefs are the translators. We have the nutritional education, but chefs can translate all of these ideas into something that's delicious and fun and enjoyable. And we're going to need the support of chefs and chef organizations to really do that. But I feel honored and lucky to be in a place where we're so needed in a way that I think chefs have never been called upon to play this role in our country before. So it's going to take big efforts like, you know, the commitments on access and et cetera, Darden, but it's also going to take the small ones. It's going to take those efforts of you know, watching kids in the First Lady's garden chowing on vegetables they don't even know what the name is simply because they planted it, right? Or it's going to take the math teacher who is incorporating nutrition into their curriculum. It's going to take both of those kind of efforts, big and small. It's going to take millions of those small efforts and to foster these connections wherever we can, because these are the foundations that are going to allow our kids to reach their full potential. The First Lady often says that these solutions cannot come from Washington alone. Like, there's not one bill, there's not one presidential decree that is going to overcome this set of challenges. Instead, it's going to take the work of everybody like you in this room, parents and business leaders and teachers. The First Lady has made it clear that we all have a role to play, and that's exactly how she's approached this initiative. But I think one thing we should remember is that this is a real moment. This stuff it's happening right now. It's happening all over the country, everywhere I go. Amazing things are happening, but this is the moment, and it's imperative of us to seize upon it, because it's not going to come around like this, I don't think, anytime soon. So on behalf of the First Lady, you know, thank you for all the work you're doing. Ginger, thank you for doing this today. I just can't overstate the impact that this effort has, I think, for all of us who have such respect for the foundation. Because the First Lady firmly believes in her heart of hearts that if we continue to work together, we continue to leverage our efforts, we work to speak a similar language about these set of issues, that we can once again fulfill our promise to give the next generation the healthier lives that they deserve and leave a world that's better for them than what we were given. So thank you all very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing some questions. Do we,
Let's do some.
do we have time?
Yeah, we'll take a few questions.
Anybody?
They're warming up today, so there we go.
Hi,
Hi, sir.
Brian Snyder, Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Agriculture. I represent several thousand farmers, some of whom I think you know.
I do know. Jim is a dear friend.
Yeah. So the other side of the Let's Move campaign is the Know Your Farmer campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's against the Let's Move work, but there are people that are against the Know Your Farmer. And you know, industry is assembling some money to put messages out there. I go to meetings where I'm there with agribusiness folks that are really kind of freaked out by what does this whole know your farmer, know your food thing mean. And I wonder if you could comment on the commitment of the President and the First Lady from a gut level to really step up and defend what they've done, the real positive stuff that they've done in terms of drawing attention of the public to where their food comes from.
Well, the garden's not going anywhere. Let's start there. Look, I think the notion that these things are somehow separate, I think, is false. The commitment to these set of issues is, I mean, I don't know how to state it in a way that is any stronger than what their actions have been. The first major thing she did was to plant a garden on the South grounds, right? And, now that seems like, yeah, of course, we planted a garden on the South grounds. But actually at the time, it was like, that was not a no-brainer. And it took real commitment by the First Lady to tear up the South grounds. That for the people inside, they're like, huh? What? You're going to do? So there's like, the commitment is there. And let me just say that, when you have, the more people are engaged in what they're eating, the more these other initiatives are going to grow. In the end, a lot of this work depends on people really caring about their health, what they're putting in their bodies, what they're feeding their kids. And the greater we can engage there, the more progress we can make on a lot of the other fronts. So to say that they're simply separate, or that even a lot of, that they're even viewed separately, I actually think is not always true. So people are committed to this work from the very top, from the President and First Lady down, and have all intentions to continue trying to bring the country together to solve these problems. This is about working together. This isn't about fighting. This isn't a fight. I think a lot of times people want to just draw lines and play it out, but that's not going to be the most effective way to move this country forward, because in the end, you spend all your time battling. But I think there's common ground to be found, and a path forward that includes everybody to actually have a really lasting and sustainable solution to these problems. So, fear not.
Thank you for your work. My name is Ariane Latian with the Organic Farming Research Foundation. You mentioned the First Lady's role in the Child Nutrition Reauthorization Bill. I was wondering if you could speak at all to her role in the upcoming 2012 Farm Bill reauthorization.
Well, a lot of these issues are actually playing out right now, so we'll see exactly how this plays. How the bills will go. To be clear, she was a champion. She wasn't writing legislation. She wasn't sort of negotiating provisions. That's just not her job. But her job was to help raise the profile of a bill that directly was about our children. Now, obviously, the Farm Bill has implications to that, but I don't foresee her being out there sort of lobbying different pieces of the bill. Now, we care about some of the portions of it. The Child Obesity Task Force report talks about some of the changes that need to be made around that. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. There's no plan, though, for her to be out lobbying on the Farm Bill. It's a different bill.
Right, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Richard Martin from Food Republic. I wanted to ask if you could share your opinions, or if there's any official opinions on GMO labeling, and whether or not you think we'll see it in our lifetime in the United States.
Well, on behalf of the First Lady, who's working on Let's Move, no, the GMO is not sort of part of our purview. I know it's an issue that means a lot to a lot of people, but when it comes to Let's Move, the issues I think are not one and the same. So it's not an issue that we have tackled, nor do I envision the First Lady taking on at this point. As to labeling, that's anyone's guess.
With that, I think we should give Sam a big round of
Thank you.
applause. Thank you.